kwano. Musko. Lafiya lama.
Ita dai ganga bashi, sannan gangan bashi an kaɗa ki kowa zai taka. Babban kan buɗan Usman. Gwamnan giwa mai ban tsoro ɗan shehu. Toron giwa ba fasawa ɗan Usman. Baba kan kada mai ƙwari kan gwanki mai rangwangwan. Widi ɗan tijjani, widi mutumin shata.
The Castle Pod project is a 4-part lecture series called Worlds Between Words. So I currently teach at Kaduna State University, that is CASU, and we picked from the course that I teach, which is the modules that I teach in the first year, we picked 5 of the prescribed texts that vary in length, period, style, and setting to cover a wide range of topics in the genre that is prose fiction. Basically, we are reading the text to try to identify and explain what the genre is all about. This is for students in their first year. So in episode 1, we looked at Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, which is a classic in African literature and one of the most popular. In episode 2, we looked at a Bildungsroman, which is Siddhartha, and appropriately written by a German writer and poet, Hermann Hesse. In episode 3, we explored the exciting, mysterious, and dark world of the vampires, and literature's contribution to pop culture through the exciting work of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And staying with that dark and quite brutal theme in episode 3, in episode 4 we look at 2 short stories. One by Flannery O'Connor called A Good Man is Hard to Find, and the other, Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. So these are only a handful of the texts for Literature 103. These are only 5 of the extensive list. And what we decided to do was to invite international speakers to speak on some of the leading ideas in literary discourse so that our students will be introduced to global discussions on what people are talking about when they're reading some of the texts that they themselves are reading in class. So while we may be able to read this at a very local level and apply some of our own experiences to reading the text, which is what literature after all is all about, I also wanted us to kind of look at the innovative reading practices that are adopted in other parts of the world. And we see that with our guest in the first episode. He gave us an example of what he was doing with the students in reading Things Fall Apart.
One of the things I always do with my own students is to get them to read that passage and then to write it from the perspective of a colonial explorer. And quite often they inhabit the voice really chillingly well. You would not believe the ornate and exotic prose that comes out of that exercise. And then the very next week, what I would do is get them to critique their own, critique colonial discourse as they've set it up.
So who are we doing this with? Like I said, in episode 1, we invited an international speaker as well, Brendan Nichols, who is the incoming director of LUCAS, which is the Leeds University Centre for Africa Studies, and also my course mate from when I did my master's in Leeds, Aisha Habib, throughout the series, joins me to talk about these texts.
Please carry on.
Yeah, I think a normal Bildungsroman, it does this thing where you progress with the character, you learn with the character, you go from childhood to adulthood with the character. Thank you for following the series. This has been a Soundbound media production for the CASU Pod Project.